this session is going to focus on SWEP. So where have we been at this point? We've talked about ETDM, we've talked about the environmental screening tool, you've gotten little snippets about SWEP, that's Statewide Environmental Project Tracker. We talked about it in the project file review and how it's facilitated and stuff. And then we talked all through the various elements of the PD&E manual and the environmental process and everything. And SWEP is sort of where it all comes together, where we pull everything together into an electronic interface that allows us to make sense of everything, to track it, to manage it, to make sure it goes to the electronic document management system, to make sure that you can access the information from anywhere. It shares it with other applications. So this is sort of a fun session where we're going to provide an overview for you guys. And some of the key features for SWEP itself, and there's a lot of them. This is just a few that I'm going to highlight. You know, it obviously supports the preparation of PD&E scopes of work. Marina's going to cover that this afternoon. This SWEP application is actually tied to the project schedule and management system on the mainframe, which as you guys develop your schedules and use your PSM codes, it actually pulls it in to the system and allows us to continue to track all these various milestones and stay up on the project. It's going to provide quick and easy access to the project files, and again, it doesn't matter if you're on the DOT network or not. It's a secure application, so it's tied to your credentials and your location. It's going to allow us to interactively assign team members and make electronic notifications. And what the system does is, as things are uploaded and move around and people do things and they go through the approval process, everybody who's kind of part of that effort, either inputting stuff in or they're part of the review, are kept in the loop on where the project is all throughout the entire system. It does an electronic approval. One of the things that Ruth is going to show you in a little bit is going to be a demo of the new SEER implementation within SWEP. So that's doing an electronic version of the SEER itself, including the reviews and approvals to whatever level makes sense within the district who's delegated that authority. But you'll be able to go through that QA/QC. And for the federal stuff, you know, the type 1s are obviously already delegated down to the district and completed that way. The non-major state actions are the same. You're going to see an implementation of the non-major state actions form. That's all completely electronic at this point and part of SWEP. And we can see it's getting a lot of use. I think when I ran the report right before this training started, you know, it was hundreds and hundreds of these developed in Turnpike. So I think Philip's very familiar with that, but it'll be great to share that with everybody else. But for the larger documents, the type 2s, the EAs, the EISs, and then the corresponding reevals that go with those things, they're routed all through from the district, completing QA/QC up through our project delivery coordinators. And eventually, when they're ready to enter into the approval process by the director of OEM, it then gets shepherded through that process electronically, where it's going to go to Katasha and Margie after the PDC approves that it's ready. If the project happens to have a 4F, or you happen to have it's an EIS, then you need to do legal sufficiency, which is completed by our OGC legal team. They do that within SWEP. And then the document, if it needed that extra level, gets routed to the director with all of those lower level assurances that everything's there and the document looks good. The director, Jason, has the ability to go in and do his review and then ultimately, you know, his approval. And all throughout the whole process, if something needed to go back and forth, there's mechanisms in place to kind of handle that. And because of that, we're able to record the QA/QC results, the finding results. We're able to document all the interactions and how long it's taking at each stage. So there's lots and lots of performance-related elements associated with it. So one of the things that was asked about the other day was, how do you request access? It is a closed system. So what you see on the screen is an email. The help goes to our entire team. swept@flaetat.org goes to the same team. But this email would travel from the district environmental leadership, where they're recognizing this person's going to need one of these roles. The roles are listed there. And by sending us an email, they're providing authorization for us to create an account for this person with those roles. And each one of those roles allow you to do different things, right? A project file uploader, someone who's allowed to put something into the file, is different than someone that can create the file, which is different than somebody that can approve the document and stuff. So all of these levels of access really determine what your level of interaction is going to be within the application. So we don't need much. We just need the approval from the district. We need to know who we're approving. They need to have an email address, and then we need to know what's their role going to be within the system. So some of the things that we're going to look at is just at a high level, overall review for type 1s, 2s, EAs, EISs, non-major state actions, and SEERs. We know for type 1s, it's delegated to the district. There's no change. There's no review and approval for us. It all stays down in the districts. It's actually the same way for non-major state action. You guys handle that. You do it. You fill out the form. You approve it. All that stuff. But for type 1s, 2s, EAs, and EISs, they must be documented and approved in SWEPT, all within this electronic system. That's mostly so that we can show compliance with the federal process, and that's part of NEPA assignment, saying that we'd be able to document all of those interactions and be able to provide information upon request to show how we're performing under NEPA assignment. Non-major state actions has been in the system since almost right out of the gate. And like I said, there's thousands and thousands of non-major state actions being completed electronically. Turnpike's doing a great job of that. And we're in the middle of implementing a SWEPT version of the SEER. You're going to see a demo of that today. It's in testing right now with all the districts. We're thinking there's going to probably be a few things we need to respond on. And then after that, it's going to go to production. If I had to guess, I'm thinking October. That timeline is kind of tied to what comes out of the testing. Big things takes longer. Little things takes less. So as an overview of the application itself, it's built into modules, whether it's a dashboard, quality management, how do we get teams in there? How's the project get uploaded? And how do you put documents in there? Project documents within that system, you're going to see, the ability. It's just like adding stuff to your email. You're navigating, you're going, you're finding it. The only difference is you're going to be provided with a little bit of a form to put in some additional attributes that help us figure out where does this document need to live? How are people going to find it? Because the big thing is when you put stuff into a big electronic filing cabinet, you got to have enough attributes so people can find it later. Otherwise, it's just into the abyss. So you'll have that spot where you can upload stuff and everything. By putting it in here, you also have consistent format and structure. When you're saving things into the SWEPT system itself, you have the ability, say you uploaded a technical study and the technical study is done and you put it in SWEPT and it's going to support this environmental document approval, but you're not expecting that to happen for a couple of years, but you want to have access to that document in EDMS. As soon as you upload it, you can press a button that says send to EDMS and then we'll go send it to EDMS, which makes it available to everything else. Otherwise, when the document is approved, Jason's signature or the district signature, all depending on who's the level of approval, when it's approved, there is a routine that looks and says, okay, everything that's in the project file, if it's already been sent, don't worry about it. If it hasn't been sent yet, go ahead and send it. So that's how it gets up there. And by doing that, we're managing the retention, we're putting it in the right groups and types. And then ultimately, the source ends up being a great support for the admin record, which we talked about before, and we also talked about the electronic approval process. So just kind of looking at the interface when you come in, there's breadcrumbs at the top, so you see that there's a home, and as you start to go within the site itself, it'll actually start cascading things for each page, which would allow you to go back to a particular page a little earlier. There's up in the right-hand side, there's some simple stuff like notifications. Do I have any email notifications? Are there any alerts I need to work about? Is the head and shoulders, sorry, I couldn't actually pronounce that for some reason. The head and shoulders is designed for account information. So your email changes, you need to delegate somebody's responsibility, elements like that. So it's all under there. Then at the very top, there's ways when you're working in the site itself, you want to create something as a PDF. You want to, the next little icon over in between the PDF and the Excel is a zip file. So if you had a project file and you wanted to get the whole thing out because you wanted a local copy of that, you could do a zip file and it would take care of that as well. And then there's some things that can be in Excel and some things that can be exported as a Word. So there's the ability for that. And then up in the right, we call this the golden search. Basically anything that you can think of that you want to look for. Could be an FM, could be a project name, could be a class of action type, it could be a person, it could be whatever. You put it in there and it would come back with the results that meet that criteria. And then over on the left, we have what we call a hamburger menu that allows the left-hand piece where you see all those reports and everything else. That takes up a lot of real estate, and a hamburger menu expands or contracts that left-hand side to give you a little more visible room. Then underneath, you'll see things organized in such a way. So if you're looking at project input utilities or project documents, or you want to see things that have been approved, there's lots of different cascading menus under there to help you kind of dig into the application to either find a project or see where it is in the approval process and who's it stuck with and all of those various elements. And that's what each one of those sections do. There's also dashboards and reports that allow you to start seeing, well, how many type 1s did we have in District 1 last year? You can go in there and interactively do that. There's also a new environmental permit module, which was developed for the district environmental permit teams. They all work together and developed a module. It's accessible. It's a mechanism where they can upload and tie their permits themselves to the various projects and just have a way to manage that. Also under the help, there's lots of tools and tips there. There's an overview, there's quick guides, there's training videos, all sorts of things. When you're looking to find a particular project, you could either use the project's needing approval report, which is an example below. You could search at the upper right for the search tool. A lot of times what I do is everyone talks in FMs. I literally take the FM, I put it into the search, and then I find all the projects associated with that. It could be one or many. Sometimes these FMs are reevals, and those reevals might be tied to a couple of projects. But you'll get a whole list, and you'll be able to see them, and you'll be able to navigate to them. When you click on a project and you go to the home page, this is a pretty standard looking home page. You'll notice at the top, the FM, there's links to ISO. There's the TIP-STIP, and there's also to Project Suite Enterprise Edition there as well. You've got some details about that FM. You can see whether or not it has ETDM number, what the class of action is, if there's a project-specific web page. You've got access to who's the district team managing this, who are the OEM team members that are managing this. A lot of things you guys are working on are state projects, so you won't necessarily see a lot of the OEM reviewers, although you will see Matt and Mike Pennington on there for you guys. As we slide down, you'll start to see for the project, it'll pull in whatever the PSM codes are, so you can see what the schedule is. This is updated nightly, so anytime it's pulled, it's updated. And then you begin to walk through the project documents, where you can upload stuff, your scope of service. You can begin to work on, your various documents, and there's ways to upload things and add them. When you do upload and add stuff, there's the document naming convention. We went through this yesterday, but there is rhyme to its reason for how every document that gets uploaded, what it means, and that's kind of what it means. And then you got, how things are organized in there. You'll notice there's a topic and document, and so they're right now at the folder level. You could open up every one of those folders and start putting in more detailed documents in there, but we just want to give you a screenshot on how that works, as well as the correspondence. And at the very bottom, one of the things I did want to bring to your attention is, so if we think about, we're building the electronic project file, some things that could exist relative to the project that should be part of the accessible swept record might be attorney-related products that can get uploaded, and they have a spot where they can be uploaded, and on upload you can say this is an attorney product, and it becomes part of SWEPT, but it gets organized differently so that it's accessible to the team, but it's not going to become part of the administrative record on there as well. And then at the very bottom, what you see is as a project goes through the approval process, it maintains the approval history on who did what on what day and where did it go and where is it at and everything. So this, what we're seeing below at the very bottom is, you know, a document that was initially created. It was certified by one of the environmental team members in the district. It was certified and submitted by the other environmental leadership team member in the district. It then went up to the PDC and OEM to be reviewed. It looks like they had to go back and forth with a little bit of minor edits, and then eventually the PDC confirmed that that was all done. And then they confirmed that that document was ready for approval. It got confirmed by both Margie and Katasha and OEM, and then ultimately signed by Jason. So every project, this is at the very bottom of everything, and helps us with our QA, QC, and as we you know, move through the process. So that was just a high-level overview. I just had this. Now you guys get to see the good candy. I think from here, Ruth, if you want to take over as presenter and go ahead and do those demos, I'd be greatly appreciative.